policies.
Mr. Brake.
Through Mr. Chairman, I'll ask them to add the word cash and cash equivalents. It should say cash and cash equivalents. The related parties disclosure is done in their annual report and actually transferred over to our annual report as well. But I'll just check to see whether there's an accounting policy required for related parties, and if there is, I'll suggest that get included as well.
Any further questions there? Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In relation to rental income on page number 18, are there properties that are rented? Is there rental income, or does that narrative still need to be there? Can it be dropped?
Mr. Chairman, from memory, they did used to be a rental income, and I'm not sure there is any more. So again, I will check that, and if there isn't one, then there's probably no need for that accounting policy, and I'll ask that be deleted as well.
Thank you. So, councillors, on page 5, we have a recommendation there. Councillor Price.
I'm happy to move that recommendation.
Thank you. Do I have a Councillor Brown, you seconding that?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I will second that.
We have a mover and a second. Is there any further discussion, debate? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. We move on to page 19. Experience Mid-Canterbury draft statement of intent. Do you want to do this now, or shall we wait?
Up to you.
Councillors, at 2 o'clock, Experience Mid-Canterbury are here to do their quarterly report. Thank you. If you wanted, we could wait till then to do this. So if any questions arise from their statement of intent, we'll be able to ask Experience Mid-Canterbury directly for clarification. So we will move forward until Experience Mid-Canterbury get here, and we'll move to page 41, item 5.3, keys to the district. Thank you. We have staff coming forward to ask any questions you may have. You have nothing further you'd like to add at this stage?
Thank you. Through the Chair. So this report came about as a request from Council for further information on a Keys to the District award. I've done a sort of desktop review to look at what other councils have across the country with regards to this award. The Keys to the District award is symbolic in nature. Quite often a key or a certificate is given to the recipient, and I've recommended that the award would be given to people who have sustained national or international achievement over 5 years, and then also added the criteria that the award should only be given out once in every council term, and that's sort of about keeping the award's prestige and making sure there is a level above the awards that we already have. I have to take any questions.
Thank you, and thank you for that clarification. Do any councillors have questions? Councillor Price.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. I wonder how that proposed award would vary from the Ashburton Medal, which also seems to honour significant achievement, although it doesn't have the 5-year time period that you mentioned.
Yeah, so it is quite similar. We have sort of added those extra criteria to try and make it sort of above that level. And sort of in my mind, the award would be for sort of the best of that group, but it is quite hard to get that into a written criteria.
Thank you. Councillor Brown.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I've got a similar question as well. We've got 4 distinct awards we can give away. We're going to add one towards it, which basically does exactly the same thing. We've just been going through the process before with another meeting we had, tried to streamline things. Why are we going to put an extra one on? It's all been covered in the 4 we've got, as far as I can see.
Thank you, through the chair. So we have prepared this report based on a request from council, but at the end of the day, the decision rests with you as elected members as to if you'd like to proceed or not. So we'll be guided by your decision today.
Councillor Wilson.
Thanks, Mr Chairman. I will be voting against it. I think we have sufficient wards already, especially when we had 3, was it, awarded about a fortnight ago? 4. I think that's quite sufficient. So I'll be voting against the motion.
Any questions of the staff or the... Okay, if there's no further questions, would... Oh, sorry,
I was just-
Councillor Lovett.
Just going to ask one, could we not take like the honorary citizen one and change that to the keys of the district award and do it only if so often? Just a thought.
Tony.
Thank you, through the chair. So I guess just to provide a bit more background to the context of how we've come to this case of the District Award, is it initially came through the International Relations Subcommittee, and we're on discussion and on the reflection of the report that went to the International Relations Subcommittee. It clarified that the Honorary Citizens Award was what that subcommittee was looking to use more frequently, and that there possibly could be merit in having a case to the District Award. So no, we wouldn't be recommending as officers that this should replace that.
Thank you. Okay, if there's no further... Councillor Brown.
If I could ask another one, just under point 5.3.4, option 2, the new award would need to be sufficient different from the current awards. So how much difference is there? I can see it. In the 4 we've got already, I can't see the difference. I might be simple, but so be it.
Through the chair, so as we've already identified, it's down to that longevity of that amazing achievement would be the point of difference, and the fact that council could only award it once and it's every 3 years.
Councillor Rawlinson.
Thank you. I want to turn something into a question, but does this cater for that outstanding person who perhaps could be a sports person or a business person, even who's fits the criteria of the 5 years and does have that international exposure and experience as well? What I'm saying is, does it sit well above the other awards we already give in level of importance?
From an officer's perspective, we think that it does, but we'll be guided by your judgment.
Thank you. Would someone like to move recommendation? Councillor Rawlinson.
I would be happy to move the recommendation 5.3.2
Thank
as
you.
it stands.
Seconder.
I'll second that.
Councillor Malcolm has second. Is there any debate? Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much, Mr Chairman. I was actually at the International Relations Committee when this matter started getting debated, and as has quite rightly been reported by the kind staff, honorary citizens was where we started the conversation, and it ended up going into a place where there are occasions, and I recall one where an outstanding sports person had won an international recognition and came to council and we congratulated them. But over and above the congratulations, there was nothing that we had to give. So that conversation kind of steered us towards, well, there is a distinction between you're not an honorary citizen who isn't a citizen of our district, but we're recognising the value and the contribution they make to our district, versus the local who achieves well or the visitors who achieve well, and we want to recognise in a different way. So can I congratulate the staff on their report, and I will be supporting the recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Price.
Also, as a member of the International Committee who initially discussed this, my recollection was the idea was quite similar to the kind of award, for example, that Councillor Macmillan received when she did an exchange a year in Japan. She was made an honorary citizen. And also similar in the report to those visitors to Nelson who've been given those awards. I don't see anything in this that actually allows us to give some kind of honour to those significant visitors to our district. And so I'm not sure which way I'm going to vote on this one.
Councillor Braham, your light was on.
Yeah, I still have great difficulty understanding this. We've got 4 awards we can give away. I don't see the use for in key as well.
Councillor Wilson.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I think it's contradictory. If you look on page 49, and it came from the International Relations Committee, and the way some of the supporters are saying, International Relations Committee talks with overseas people, but overseas people don't necessarily qualify because number 2 in the criteria, they must have resided in the Ashburton district for at least 5 years. So international people that do so well, if they haven't resided in New Zealand for 5 years, they don't qualify. So to me, where it came from is contradictory. Why the International Relations Committee thought this up, I've got no idea.
Any further discussion? Councillor Price.
Just as a clarification, the initial idea came from the International Relations Committee. The wording in here came from staff. And that's why I'm conflicted about which way, because I was looking for something that did give an award to those people, or acknowledge those people who were visitors to the district. But with that second criteria, we cannot do that with this award.
Thank you. Through the chair, I can just provide some clarification. So a recommendation was made from the International Relations Subcommittee to FABS for council to consider a Keys to the District award. At the International Relations Subcommittee, it became really apparent that actually the Honorary Citizens Award is what that subcommittee was seeking to use more frequently. But the discussion that had almost morphed into this Keys to the District award, the subcommittee recommended to council that perhaps council might like to consider if a Keys to the District award was appropriate for the district. So the direction was then passed through a motion for council to go, for officers to go and investigate and report back to council on what this might look like, hence what you have in front of you.
So, and just for my clarification, we gave out those 4 awards last week. Those people would still be eligible for this Key to the District award because obviously we're already recognising that they've done some very good work, so that shouldn't preclude them from this. Okay, thank you. There's no further discussions. Councillor Braham.
Yeah, I know what you're saying, but does that mean every award is a different level? And different criteria is not really there because it's exactly the same. I can get one of those 4 if I'm really a good boy, and then I might get the number 5 as well because I'm here for 5 years.
Councillor Rawlinson, you have your right of reply because you were the mover of the...
Thank you. I just wanted to comment that, again, that the level of recognition to get this award would be similar to being if a local person became an All Black captain and was successful, or you could liken a Richie McCaw type person, or it could happen in business as well. That's the level of award that I was considering that this would be appropriate to, and it sits above the community awards, of which I've sat through and understand fully about them, but I think this is taking it to another tier.
Okay, councillors, so that now ends the debate on this. We've had the right of reply taken, so I'm going to put the motion 5.3.2 as written there on page 41. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? No. That's carried. Number 6, page 50, activity reports. Would someone like to move that we receive the activity reports, please? Councillor Brown, Councillor Ruberly, thank you. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Okay, welcome Gordon, 6.1, information systems, 6.1.1 projects. anything you would like to add there at all, Gordon?
Good afternoon. Just on a couple of areas of process development since the beginning of this year, and slightly before actually, and end of last year, beginning of this year, that we've been on reduced capacity in this area. I am pleased to say that we've actually secured one seat in this area, which will help us push more work through to end completion. We still have a couple of staff who are on maternity leave, and they'll be returning over the next 3 months before we're back to full strength. The only other thing that I would add is under infrastructure, that the core hardware renewal project, that's actually been completed now.
Thank you. Does anyone, Councillor Rev?
Yeah, thanks. What sort of work are you taking out? The work's underway to process in the following: the cemeteries, dogs, or animals, and building warrants. What's the stem of work you're doing?
Earlier this year, we instigated some general inquiries with teams who had handled the most volume in terms of applications, process-driven work, basically to go and engage with them and say, look, hey, how can we help you? You know, what are your pain points? What can we do to improve your service, either internally between teams or externally to customers, residents, ratepayers? The type of work that we're doing there is varied. It's still ongoing, the investigations and determination of that. One is a very simple one, is just using the tools better than they've been used previously. And a good example of that is in the area of limbs, in just assembling the limbs. There's a lot of information that has to be pulled together. Simply knowing a few more skills around the actual tool to assemble has, delivered time savings for that person. So they can range from that. They can range all the way through to building warrant of fitnesses, where there's a whole process review going on. There's in the cemetery open spaces, it's about just producing invoices on PDF and being able to email them out. So it is a full range of the improvements that we're looking at.
Any further questions of Gordon there at all? No, thank you. Okay. Item 6.2, strategy and policy. 6.2.1, projects. Is there anything you'd like to add there, Tony?
Thank you. Yes, I've just got a couple of points to make. It's been a really busy old time for our team over the last 6 weeks, but we've got a full team on deck and they're really cracking along with the work, which is wonderful. I've just realised that the one project that is rather major that's missing from my list is actually the consultation that's out there with the library and the Civic Centre. Apologies. We're making good progress with that, and it feels like the community are starting to really understand the issues and the options that council's confronted with. We have received 26 submissions as of midday today. 2/3 of those submissions support either option 1 or option 2 or a hybrid of option 1 and 2. So looking fairly positive, really robust and quality feedback that's being received in those submissions. Lots of thought and lots of input from the community, so we're really thrilled.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I've got a question on an annual resident survey. People continue to complain that they don't fit the criteria. When they're rung up, they say, we're willing to submit, and they say, are you 20 to 25 or something? And they say, no. However, the person rang me and I said, no, I don't qualify because I'm already a councillor. And they said, could you suggest some males between 25 and 35? And I thought that was a bit unusual in a way, because I could perhaps pick people that were favourable to the council or didn't like the council, or how do they go through the phone book, or how do they actually, because the same people seem to get rung up each year. I know people that continually be rung up every 3 years, and because they're over 65 and they're a lady or something, that seems to get heaps of retired people that want to contribute, but obviously it's the younger ones that have trouble getting them, and they should just about go onto cell phone, because on landlines they miss out on a big percentage of the population. What sort of criteria do
Thank you. That's a fabulous question, Councillor Wilson. So the entire purpose of the resident survey is to get a representative sample of our district. So we're looking for people that are from the urban and the rural sector. We're looking for people across the different age groups, and we're looking for a really good balance of male and female respondents to the survey. The survey at the moment, we've got 280 completed out of our target of 400. It is a randomised phone survey, so they're using landlines, and they've also got a cell phone database that they're using. So they're trying their best to talk to as many different people in the community as possible. They did take a hiatus post the 15th of March tragedy. They were expecting to do a big push that weekend, but made 2 phone calls and got the response they got, and decided, quite rightly so, to just hit pause for a week until they would get back onto the calling, because people were feeling very raw at that point in time. So it's a really hard one, and it is something as officers that we're looking to consider further, and it's something that across New Zealand councils are battling with, because we understand that people are moving away from landlines. We're relying on our mobiles more often. If we aren't on a database, then we're pretty hard to contact. But there are different mechanisms that we'll certainly be looking to in the future. But for this survey, it is a phone survey using landlines and mobiles.
Councillor Rawlinson.
Thank you, and just to add to that, I've had quite a few people make a comment that they thought that was scammers ringing them, which of course is such a problem, and I wondered whether we should, or it would be appropriate to put another media statement out there just to remind people that this survey is occurring, because some people have thought it was scammers and hung up or made rude, inappropriate remarks and won't talk to them. So they may have commented back to you, but I've heard quite a bit of feedback on that.
Absolutely, and that's something we're looking to do, is to re-push out the message again that it is still going.
Councillor Revley.
Okay, I'm with Aoraki Environmental Consultancy. I see you're meeting with Lake Camp and Clearwater. I just wondering what you're actually consulting on, and I noticed earlier in the document we were talking about an MOU with Lake Camp and Clearwater. Are those two subjects together, or is this a separate piece of work?
Okay, thank you, through the chair. Great question. So Aoraki Environmental Consultancy are the commercial arm of Arowhenua, our iwi, and our runanga. So we meet with them on a 6-weekly basis to talk about any projects that we have on as council. And so the work projects that you see down there are just the ones that we've got on the radar at the moment that they're seeking their advice or input on. With regard to the Lake Camp and Clearwater, it was really just a discussion around the work that the Parks and Open Spaces team is undertaking up there in terms of some planting, and I think they've been sorting out a road issue up there as well. So certainly they're not directly talking with Lake Camp and Clearwater, they're talking to us as officers about our work, and we're seeking their advice.
Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Same topic, Aoraki Environmental. The salmon site at Rakaia, what's our project there?
Oh, so that's a joint project, as I understand it, between the Rakaia Lions and also the Parks and Open Spaces team. So Aoraki Environmental Consultancy, we talked to them just to ensure that there was no sites there of cultural significance that we needed to be aware of. And certainly they were quite happy to give us that advice, and they also offered to give us some planting advice should we require it.
Okay. At what stage will that come back to council? Because we haven't seen any plans out there for development yet.
So that's sitting with the Parks and Open Spaces team. I am not aware of when they're planning on bringing that through to service delivery.
Just going to go to our Chief Executive.
Just to answer that last point, the application for that project is to be made to the Tourism Infrastructure Fund. That application closes tomorrow. I saw a draft application this morning. There's a couple of things to be tweaked. And then we hope to get endorsement from the Mayoral Forum for that application, which will be forthcoming, and then it has to be lodged tomorrow.
The project's only just for the toilet replacement, or is it bigger than that? Because the Lions are doing something as well.
It encompasses the offer from the Lions to contribute to the landscaping, and the Lions have produced a landscape plan, which is included in our initial submission to AIF.
Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Through you to the Chief Executive. So hear the answer. Appreciate the work that's done, but just to Councillor Brown's point, how has council received the information and endorsed it before it goes to the mayoral forum for endorsement? So as in the elected member.
It may not have been, reading between the lines from this discussion. As I say, I saw a first draft this morning, and it does close tomorrow. So it may well be that it's going to be prepared and submitted at an officer level.
So is there an opportunity, and perhaps Councillor Brown could help me out here, that we could perhaps look at defining our process for preparation for the Tourism Infrastructure Fund so that in future the elected members are aware of what's being submitted or what the process is? Keen to hear your thoughts, though.
Well, I think we should know, as representatives of the community, we probably should know what's going out there. I know the Lions are doing some great work and they've got a wee plan out there for it, and we're going to look at replacing the toilets out there, make them bigger and better and what have you, because it gets pounded by the tourists. But I don't know if the people of Rakaia have even seen what wants to change in that area, and I'm assuming all the changes are good. I've heard no negativity, but I don't think the people of Rakaia have seen what is proposed, and I'm sure if they did see it, they'd be in approval.
Thank you. So good comments, and thank you, and Chief Executive will follow up on that, so thank you. Councillor Price.
Yeah, just to carry on with that conversation, it's my recollection that when we applied to the same fund for toilets up at Lake Camp, that did come through council. So perhaps we need to get a consistent process working.
Sounds like on this one there was a timing issue, but yes, thank you. Councillor Malcolm.
Yeah, as regards to the Rakaia 7 project, I'm a little bit involved.
You just put your microphone down, thank you.
It has been, the local community group has been consulted, right, with their approval, so.
Thank you. Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. Through you to Tony. So the consultation that Councillor Malcolm's referring to, does that meet the criteria of local government? Have we consulted enough as the landowners, and I presume it's a reserve, have we consulted enough to meet our statutory obligation?
Thank you. Through the chair, I don't have all the details in front of me at the moment. I would imagine that it's probably adequate consultation in terms of if the community association's been involved and the Rakaia Lions have been involved, that has met at that community side of things. But I would have to go away and look into that further.
Thank you. Councillor Malcolm.
Just supplementary to that, the community association has a $10,000 beautification fund gift to them each year from council, and that will be used also in part of that development.
Sounds like an exciting project if it all comes into being, and I think it will not only benefit Rakaia, it will benefit the whole district, because it is, Rakaia is one of the entrances to our district. So, yeah. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Personally, I'm quite comfortable with where we are. The people of Rakaia have been involved. The council from Rakaia has been involved. It might be a time issue, but we've got great staff. I trust those guys as well, and girls. We don't have to put a dot on every I. This is not a major. It will be a great thing, but to me it's something what we don't always have to have an eye on the top.
Councillor Brown.
I think we do have to dot all the I's and cross all the T's. We can't leave any undotted or uncrossed. But just to take it further, there is a plan for Councillor Malcolm. He might like to have a Rakaia News, put the plan in the Rakaia News so everybody out there can have a look and see what it is. And I'm sure it's a great project, but I just haven't seen it, and the others out there probably have. But let's all have a look at it.
Thank you. Yep. Mr. Chief Executive.
Thank you. We'll circulate the application to councillors now so that you can see it and have knowledge and be informed to discuss it with whoever else may be interested in it. What we won't have time to do is to circulate it and seek feedback from council prior to submitting it. We just don't have that time.
Thank you.
I can just add, Mr. Chairman, that the Mayoral Forum is endorsing all applications to the fund from all the councils in the Canterbury region. So we've seen a draft letter of support which will be attached to every application from this region. And there are a number, as you can imagine. Our neighbours are all submitting for their tourism infrastructure projects, and the Mayoral Forum is endorsing all of them.
Thank you. And Tony, it's great to see we had 62 applications for our grants, totalling 450,000. So it's good to see that people are getting involved in our community grant scheme, and it's going to make it a challenging job for those on the community grants committee to allocate that money. Any further questions or comments there? So just while Tony's still sitting there, for those people who may be live online, you've still got the opportunity to submit to our consultation that's out there, so make the most of that opportunity, please. Thank you. 6.3, communications. Welcome, Ruben. 6.3.1, communications policy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to follow up at a formality to close the loop on this particular item that has been reported in previous FABS meetings. The communication policy, at the direction of Council, the policy and strategy team worked to essentially split this policy up to what we would consider an internal and external one. The external one would be related to Council and elected members, of which that was reviewed and at this morning's meeting earlier today of the bylaw and strategy and bylaw committee. Just wanted to close the loop on that for the record that has been passed and that has been approved. So no further updates on this item.
Okay, does anyone have any questions of Ruben? Thank you. 6.4 finance, 6.4.1 projects. Paul, you're going to handle this. Anything you'd like to add?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, just to comment that unfortunately the Procure to Pay project has actually slipped back to a forecast completion date of December 2019, and that's really due to availability of our external provider involved in that project. And it's been difficult to get a commitment of a start date from them. We now have it, but we won't have that completed by June as originally intended.
Thank you. Are there any questions there of finance? Okay, thank you. Instead of going to the variance report now, I'll invite the members of Experience Mid-Canterbury forward, and we'll go back to their item. And I will just, for your information, these meetings are now live streamed, so if we can just ask you please to make sure your microphones are on and you speak into them, otherwise those who are listening in just can't hear us. So, so thank you for your attendance. Now what we're also waited until you gentlemen were here. We haven't yet received your draft statement of intent. We're going to do that while you're here, so if there's any questions, you can then answer them. So, councillors, page 19, item 5.2, the draft statement of intent from Experience Mid-Canterbury. You have a... Does anyone have any questions of that? Madam Mayor.
Thank you, and good afternoon, gentlemen. On page 24, under strategic direction, I'm looking at the second item, the Ashburton District Visitor Strategy from 2009 to 2019. And I'm wondering if you could just provide an update on what your intention is with that document, if there's a refresh coming.
So I sent a document through to Council a couple of weeks ago, and we also talked quite openly about the 2018-2028 document, which was a one-pager. And the reason why we went down a one-page strategy, looking at what we were doing in the future, is A, cost, and secondly, distribution. The current 2019 9 to 19 is quite a big document that actually is mostly actually available in this statement of intent. It talks about our role, it talks about various other things. So it's a lot of duplication, and it's also and I'd consider it as in a hard semi-copy, and I didn't feel that it was appropriate to continue on with that.
Thank you. So supplementary, should that just be named something else? Should we drop the 2009 to 19 to another narrative in that second bullet point in our statement of intent?
Can do. Yep, absolutely.
Thank you. Any further questions or points of clarification anyone would like? If not, would someone like to move, please? Oh, sorry, Councillor Price.
Thank you. Through you, I wonder if you could tell me about events. Now, my understanding was that EMC had moved away from promoting events, but you talk about convention and events here on page 28. Does that mean, for example, you'll be involved with the Sister Cities Conference that's going to be held here next year?
So firstly, we haven't moved away from events. What we have is moved away from the administration of events, which was the local community events, and that was agreed between the council and ourselves. Quite simply, there was a fund of $20,000 that our board was administering and it was validated against anybody that put an application in for events. In terms of our ongoing commitment to events, anything that's of real value to the district, we would be heavily involved. So it's just like you're talking about the Sister City Conference, etc., we would be heavily involved in that.
Councillor Price.
And just asking a question that's totally unrelated to that. Looking at Objective 2, Performance Measure 1, which is business partnerships. The current year, 2018-19, there was quite a drop-off of partnerships. Is there a reason that you can identify for that?
Two reasons. I've got to get used to that. Two reasons. The first one, we certainly did have quite a negative downturn in terms of the Ashburton eyesight closure. We had a number of operators that felt that we'd not looked after their services. But the other one, which is really important to understand, is that we've got quite a lot of competition in our own space in terms of Booking.coms, Expedia.com, and our operators that are out there are spending enormous amounts of money making sure that their booking engines are safe and sound, and so sometimes they just physically can't afford to be involved with our partnership as well.
Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Page 27, I'm looking under marketing, New Zealand marketing and Australian marketing. The second bullet point under New Zealand marketing, working with Christchurch International Airport and Aoraki Tourism. I expected to see Christchurch New Zealand in that as well. Do they assist in New Zealand? Do you work with them?
Yes, so I removed Christchurch NZ from this particular document. We do have a partnership, but we don't have a paid-up partnership any longer. To belong to Christchurch NZ costs $10,000, which is a considerable amount of money, when with the budget like we have. So we removed ourselves as a fully paid up member, but we still attend the various, what we call district tourism office meetings and that sort of thing. So we're not completely exempt from them.
And Aoraki Tourism is Timaru?
Aoraki, yes, that's correct.
Still relevant for the 1920 year?
It is current. Well, we finished up the contract on the 31st of July, so it is for 1 month.
Thank you. Any further questions?
Yes, please. So supplementary to your earlier answer, you mentioned that you'd made a change and dropped Christchurch NZ from this. Councillor Brown asked a very good question on an earlier statement of intent. Have there been other changes from previous years? Is that the only one? Is that the only change?
That's the only change that we've ever made, yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Yes, as you know, I've always encouraged EMC to make sure that the local operators contribute towards the promotion of tourism in our district. On page 31 or page 11 of yours, industry total contribution you say paid support from local tourist operators. What percentage of the 645,000 actually comes from local tourist operators? Because the council put a few hundred thousand into it. How much are local tourist operators?
So there's no council funding sitting in there at all.
No, realise
So out of that, I'd have to have a look at my spreadsheet to be honest with you, but about 600 of that is actually coming from Tourism New Zealand and supporting things like our walks and also our winter events and that sort of thing. So if we look at that, it's around about $50,000 that we get out of our local tourism operators.
Which I think is pretty poor, actually, for the amount of money that the ratepayers are putting in. The local operators are being heavily subsidised by the ratepayers.
Yeah, well, you can look at it that way, or you can look at the return that you're getting for your money. And MB Stats, which is, 180 something odd $1 million for an investment of $360,000. And if I was a betting man and I was when council, if someone gave me that kind of return for that investment, I'd be pretty happy. And I think you got to look at the glass is always half empty or it's half full. And I think we're actually in a pretty good situation. And true, no one's going to lie that we're disappointed with them as well. But also you got to understand that our partners out there are finding it pretty damn tough and are struggling a little bit. And so their dollars are going to be, they're looking at. They still work with us, and Bruce didn't quite point that out, but the people that aren't members with us financially, they're actually members with us with product and other bits and pieces. So if we do for meals and stuff, they actually have come to the table with, a few $1,000s worth of freebies that we can give away for prizes or media for meals, etc., etc. So they don't give us pure cash, but there is a value in the product that they're actually giving us, which is actually very, very high. It's much higher than the 50,000.
Thank you. Councillor Revley.
Okay, the domestic market, page 36 here, there's quite a scattergram of where the people are. Have you any idea whether they're actually staying in bed and breakfast, hotels, motels or campus? Have you got any information at all on that?
Could you just reference to the statement of intent page? Sorry.
No, your quarterly update.
Oh, the quarterly update? The scattergraph.
So,
Right.
We'll move into the quarterly update. We'll take your statement of intent first and save that question once we get to the quarterly update.
That's perfect, thank you.
Councillor Brown.
A question on page 31 of your 11. It's the $645,000 industry total contribution. And James might have answered the question just a minute ago, but that's not necessarily in cash. It could be benefits, is it? Is that, have I got it right?
That's correct. It's also in... So for an example, Tourism New Zealand, you never see cash out of them, but what you see is the end result. So that might be a marketing campaign or a website campaign or something like that. So they're actually physically paying for that piece of marketing infrastructure. But it's considered back when we look at the contribution as... I guess it could be called goods in kind, or it could be a contribution to a local industry.
Thank you, gentlemen. Now, if there's no further questions, would someone like to move the recommendation we have there on page? Thank you. Councillor Brown has moved. Councillor Lovett has second. Any further debate? Councillor Brown? No. Okay. No further debate. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. So now we'll move into your quarterly report.
Thank you very much. So the quarterly report, I guess as I've done in the past, is there. I'm assuming everybody's read it. So if there are any questions, I'd be quite happy to answer those.
Okay, so thank you. So Councillor Lovett and then Councillor.
I was going to ask on your visitor assets, do you ever get numbers back from there, people how much money or whatever's coming back through there? Because we know a lot of visitors going through spend a lot of money in the petrol stations and the food sources, but the actual assets we have, attractions, do you ever get numbers back from there, how many people are actually using them in this county?
No, we don't, and it's been a real, I guess, challenge for us because it's really commercially sensitive, and especially when it comes to hotels, motels, because we've got a lot of competition. In terms of some of the experiences, yeah, they're very reluctant to share numbers. We'll get the odd operator. Ballooning Canterbury would be a great example. You know, they're happy to share numbers and happy to come to us and say, hey, look, you know, we've had a bit of a bad month or whatever. But we don't, it's all anecdotal. We don't see that sort of data. And there's no legislation for them to do so. So, you know, we're sort of asking out of the kindness of our hearts in terms of being able to get some understanding of where we move strategically.
Councillor Revley.
Just your scattergram there. Can you pinpoint whether they're actually staying at accommodation provider or that's camper vans or what it is?
Yeah, so that scattergram is directly from a company called Geozone, and Geozone only monitor through their CamperMate solution. So primarily what we see on the scattergraph is rental cars, hired rental motorhomes, and also motorhome association motorhomes. So they come directly off an app, so it's GPSed, and we can locate exactly where we are.
Councillor Brown.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Digital marketing, and you have paid content on Facebook and Instagram. I'm just aware of the last few days in the media, there's some big companies who've been advertising on Facebook and now reviewing it because of what happened a couple of weeks ago. Have you been following that and thinking whether you should be keeping with Facebook or did you?
Yes, we have, and we've had a thorough conversation around that. Two parts. One, in direct relation to Tourism New Zealand, we held off anything to do with tourism for the 2 weeks following the terror attack, and we didn't pay for anything with Facebook. So we have options to be able to have non-paid content and paid content. We've just done one $30 or $30 US paid content piece to promote the social media campaign piece that we're doing next week. But other than that, we've basically stopped paying Facebook for a period of time.
Councillor Wilson.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Just your light's gone off, sorry.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Page 37. You've got the spends on different sectors, international tourist spend, and then below that, they're actually local districts. Do you not have a criteria that says whether they come from the United States, Europe, China, anything like that?
So we're talking about the district visitor spend? Yes. Yes. Yes.
International tourist spend 56 million up 3 million, but and then it's got local districts, but it doesn't actually say what country.
So to answer, yes, I can split it down to every single country that MB does, but that would be about a 5 or 6 page document alone. So if you'd like to see that, I'm more than happy to break it down for you in future quarterly reviews, but it'll just make the document that much larger.
Well, supplementary, how does international tourist spend relate to those districts? Is that where they come from to Ashburton, or what does those? How do that relate to the actual figures?
So each of those is the number of. So if we use, for an example, the international, like you're talking about. So if we so we're 56 million. So if we have a look down, we're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines down Ashburton district. And if we say Timaru district, which is 49 million, that is the actual spend that has taken place over that period, or from March 18 to July 19 in that district. So when MB and Paymart wrap up all of the credit card and FPOS transactions, that's how much come out of that district through that particular period. And so on and so forth. So if we take Huranui at 35 million, that's how much they physically have earned between March, and it's a rolling estimate, that would be $35 million of international transactions by FPOS and credit card.
Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to Bruce. Bruce, can I say that Geozone information is really exciting?
Very much so.
And I'm looking at the very last narrative you've got at the bottom of page 36 that says it's new data set provided by MB and it's on a trial basis. So I guess my questions are, do you know what the frequency of the report is? How long is the trial period? Is it useful for you? And do you know what the intention is? Will MB be providing this for the whole country, or is there going to be a cost later on?
So as I understand, I actually get this report directly from Hamish, your CEO, and as I understand, this is a trial period with MB until April. I would like to see it carry on. It's fabulous information. As you know, we're very limited on information in the tourism industry, so anything like that this is gold. This directly relates to anything that we're doing in the motorhoming industry. And so, this is very encouraging stuff because, we go away and to Auckland and Hamilton, for an example, and go to the motorhome shows, which is consumer shows, and they're very, very, very difficult to be able to measure at any point. So getting some documentation like this is absolutely fantastic. So they come out on a monthly basis. We've only seen the December, January, and this one is the March option. So there should be one more, if not two.
Thank you. Councillor Rawlinson.
Thank you. Bruce, just referring to the gross bookings via the Methven iSite, I just see a huge spike for February, and I wondered why, is there a special event on that there's been such a spike in the bookings?
Thank you. It's quite noticeable. What that is in December of last year, the Methven iSite won a contract with a company called NZ Motorbikes, who are a Rolleston-based tour company. NZ Motorbikes are professionals in motorbiking and in touring, but they've got no professional services to do with experiences and accommodation. And so we basically tied up an agreement that with every tour that's coming through on NZ Motorbikes through the whole of New Zealand, we look after all the accommodation and all the experiences. So we're basically, it's a retail booking, and then we get the commission percentage of all of the suppliers that we're using.
Councillor Lovett.
I'm just going back to your motorhomes here. With our consultation in the old iSite building, and you can see it from your office, have you noticed how many camper vans are going up and down East Street? I'm wondering, whether you should be putting something together. Should we be doing more to try and actually park these vehicles up and get their dollar out of their wallets? We were surprised at how many were going up and down.
Yeah, I count sort of about, a dozen or two sometimes, depending on the day of the week. Friday seems to be very busy. They're fully aware that they can park in the main car park. We've actually given them details around the district of where they can park. And so that's actually in the Motorhome Association book that members book that they all have. So we've given them lots and lots of hints in terms of where they can stop and stay as well.
Councillor Wilson.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Page 38, Ashburton Library using the information centre. I see there's about a 50% number since 12 months ago. Has there been a big fall off, or what's the reason?
To answer that, I don't think there's a big fall off. I personally fill the stand every Tuesday, and we are constantly filling it. So I don't think it's been quite consistent in terms of the products that have been taken off the shelf. These measurements are by the library with only personal contacts about information. So there were plenty of people still coming in and looking for information, but they're taking their personal responsibility, I guess, and looking at the brochure stands as opposed to physically going to talk to one of the librarian staff. If they talk to one of the librarian staff specifically about information, then it's recorded in parts of these numbers. We've got a lot of people. One of the reasons we closed the Ashburton iSite is because people were doing an enormous amount of research before they were even getting into New Zealand, let alone into Ashburton District. Through the various sources, whether it be, Google, online websites, our own website. The traffic out of the US, in Europe and Asia it's been quite interesting over the last couple of years, even with our own website. So what happens when somebody actually is deciding to come to New Zealand? They go through a dream stage where they go, wow, I'd love to go there. Then they go through a planning stage, which they start to research in a small way, and then they become what's called an active considerer. And at an active considerer level, they're going through everything. They're looking through social media, they're looking through anything they can find online to be able to provide them information to be able to do things. So that's where we come into play, and we make sure that we're working with those active considerers. So when they get to Ashburton, they've largely got a lot of the information they need. And we can continue to work with them through the various applications we have as well.
Madam Mayor?
Thank you. Through you to Bruce. So Bruce, great to hear that you're filling the brochures up at the library. I presume you're doing the same round at Somerset Grocer? And is there a high take on brochures there?
Not as high as the library, and nowhere near as high as the Rakai salmon tail, sorry.
Okay, and second question, so you've mentioned that people are active consumers and they're looking online before they come to New Zealand. I don't see any data around online searches on the platforms, and could you remind me what your current platforms are?
Yep, so the current platforms that we use is our own website, which is midcanterburynz.com. We have Facebook, but as you know, we're only doing non-paid Facebook campaigns at the moment. Instagram. We also have two other websites, which is statehighway1.nz, which is promoting anything that is on the State Highway 1. We also have the Inland Scenic 72 or scenic72.co.nz website, and that's promoting everything that is down the Inland Scenic. And then we also have the various social media applications with those two apps as well, those two websites, sorry.
Okay, and you don't have the data here, but could you tell us what the trends are doing on those platforms?
Yeah, so the State Highway 1 is relatively new. We only launched it in December last year. So it's ticking along. Our social media, from our social media perspective, if we bundled the whole lot up, it's about 5,000 people that are following us. On our various websites, if we look at the analysis every month, we're sort of on average getting hits around about 1,000 hits per month. And they're sort of scattered right around the world. We're getting quite a bit of domestic, but a reasonable amount of international, which is good to see because people, they use social media a lot more for when they're starting to do their planning. And I don't know if you've heard of a company called Traveller, which we've actually just engaged with at Methven Eyesight. If you go to the methveneyesight.co.nz website, we've actually integrated Traveller into our eyesight. And the idea of that basically is that people are using that site as a source of planning and a source of becoming that active considerer, and then they have the ability to be able to book as well at the same time. So it's very, very clever. It's almost like a social media website with a booking engine hanging off it. It's very clever.
So can I just clarify, was that Traveleur or Travel Up?
Traveleur.
Traveleur.
Yeah, TRAVLR.
Okay.
But if you go to methveneyesight.co.nz, that takes you directly to our components.
Okay, and may I ask another question, please? I know that Sam Broughton is leading the South Island marketing plan for all of Zone 5 and 6 and local government. Just wondering if you have an update for us on that, on what the vision is and where we're at?
I haven't received anything from Sam, to be honest, but I am fully aware that that's what he is doing.
Yeah, I could probably jump in on that one. Believe it or not, I just emailed Sam the other day, actually. You might have seen that email, I'm not sure. But yeah, I sort of threw probably a little bit of a cat into the bag the other day with him, just sort of get him thinking a little bit bigger on some of the bigger planned stuff that we could actually do out there. And I suggested probably more of I wouldn't say a breakaway from anybody, but more of a strategic plan with all of our strong councils that we have. We currently have us, Mackenzie, Aoraki, and then sort of Selwyn and the Hiranui as well. So I sort of threw in a bit of a completely new marketing plan for him, which he's forwarded on to his CEO, which he's now got a little bit excited about. So he's sort of changed his direction a little bit. So I'm hoping he'll get back to us very shortly. So at this stage, to answer your question, I'm actually waiting for the CEO of Selwyn to get back to me so we can actually arrange another catch-up meeting And it was thanks to the meeting that Hamish and you had, and that invited myself to, so thank you for that. It was well worth it.
Thank you. Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to congratulate EMC for the wonderful display you had in the Lantern Festival. I just met one of the attendees at the Sister City Conference, and they complimented on how good the display was. And would you be able to tell us when you're going to put the lantern from Puyang to the art gallery?
Yes, I don't have a determined date because right now they're hanging in the Formosa restaurant on West Street. Given that they were a significant partner when we were doing the festival, I've given them the opportunity to be able to display those because they're actually generating income. There's been a lot of people that have actually walked through that door to sit down and have a glass of wine and actually have a look at the lanterns, which is fantastic. So it's driving income. Look, I'd like to think that it'll be there probably for the remainder of our financial year, which is until June, and then for the next coming financial year, I'd like to put them into the Arts Centre if we can get the okay to do so.
And supplementary to that, would the EMC be planning to be involved in the Sister City Conference in 2020, since we're going to host that?
100%.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen, for your report. Just looking forward, obviously you're going to be working closely with the Methven hot pools and making some strategic planning around what's going to happen once they open and promotion of, even further promotion of the district with that and those sorts of things.
Absolutely. In fact, I've got a meeting with James Mack out of NZ Ski in the next couple of days. We're just talking about how we take Opuki pools to trends because that's our next big event, and it's an opportunity for us to be able to get that to the international market pretty rapidly. That's in May in Rotorua, so we should be able to start looking at some big promotional stuff at that point.
Rotorua, a good place to promote hot pools. So, yep. So,
not bad. I tell you, we've got a few upset people around Canterbury right now with the Methven hot pools.
So, Councillor Lovett, I'll take one last question.
Okay. I'm just pleased to see the district video is starting. Have you got a finish date, or when is it expected to be put out there?
You can see the colour of my eyes. They start tomorrow morning at some ungodly hour, and we'll have it hopefully wrapped up by Wednesday afternoon. So it's a 5-day on show. We've got something like 78 hours of filming to do, and so you might find me under a tree in the district on Thursday morning, I'm not sure.
So thank you. So councillors, would someone like to please move that we receive the quarterly update from EMC? Councillor Lovett, second to Councillor Bell. Okay, we've had plenty of discussion around this, so all those in favour, please say aye. Carried, thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. Right, councillors, we're moving back to 6.4.2, financial reporting and variance report. Everyone. So I'll go through this page by page. And Mr. Brake will take any questions as we go. So, page 2. You're right there, Councillor Wilson, on screen. Yep, cool. Councillor, page 3. 4. Got a comment there?
Through you, Mr. Chairman. I'll just update a couple of figures in here because the February report's out, and there is a couple of changes in here. Just to let you know that on page 4, capital income under drinking water, that 250,000 is likely to be now become a permanent variance on page 4. On page 6, the capital income for the Ashburton wastewater, because the capital expenditure is a permanent variance, that income, that loan being raised is going to become a permanent variance as well, so that yes on page 4 under capital income will become, or that no, sorry, will become a yes. On page 8, the capital income for the Ashburton stormwater of 1.5 million, that's now going to become a permanent variance as well, which is yes, because the capital expenditure is a permanent variance. And on page 10, under stockwater operating expenditure, the variance there is going to become a yes. That appears to be going to overspend this current year. So in the next report you'll see that's likely to have an explanation added to it. So they are the changes that I can update from the February report.
Okay, so councillors will pick those up page by page as we go through. So page 4, any questions? Madam Mayor.
So the comments that Mr Brake has just given us, particularly around capital, just concern me when I look at the fact that on page 2, we're running at 41% of our capital expenditure. So it's not looking good for getting a significant increase till the end of the year. Am I correct, Mr Brake?
Through Mr Chairman, it is a high level of focus at the moment by the leadership team and the Chief Executive. There is some, though, permanent variances that are already marked, which means we won't achieve 100%, but we are endeavouring to spend as much as we can of the program budget that we can do. So there's a lot of activity at the moment, but we will not meet the 100% because of a couple of large variances that we've already identified.
Okay, so any further questions there on drinking water on page 4? Councillor Brown.
Well, page 5 actually.
Page 5, yep.
Chairman, and it's the reason for the variance on the drinking water, and it's professional services contract has been delayed. We've been hearing that for some time. At what stage are we going to get a professional services person to progress this work? It's probably not a question for Mr Brake, but Neil.
Through the Mayor, we have engaged a consultant in the meantime, and work has started. It is underway with design of all these works. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, wastewater, page 6. Councillor Urquhart.
Yeah, through you, Mr Chair. It says here the above financials include the following: capital services contribution. What's the difference between capital services contribution and development contributions? The drinking water on page 4 is development contributions, and the wastewater is capital services contributions.
Mr Chairman, I believe they're the same, so I'll get that corrected for the next report.
So you're confirming that, Mr McCann, are the same?
I believe it's the same thing.
Okay. So page 7, the explanation there. Stormwater, page 8. 9. Stockwater on page 10. Waste reduction and recycling, page 11. Recreation facilities, page 12. Recreation and community services, page 13. Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. So I'm just looking at the capital expenditure figure for reserve boards, and we're at just 23%. And I'm wondering where we should be looking at for that. Is it our actual representatives on each of the boards who could encourage that those funds are spent, that we can get the work done that was budgeted? Because it is frustrating when we ask the community to approve a budget and we're not getting the work done.
Through Mr Chairman, we've given the reserve boards and halls next year's budget to amend as they see fit, and once we get that back and effectively they take ownership of that, then we can follow up a lot more closely on whether they're meeting, if they've got capital expenditure, whether they're meeting it. So we will do that.
Thank you. Economic development, page 14. Councillor Wilson.
Going back to page 13, talking about reserve boards, how do reserve boards get capital to spend, apart from the grants?
Through you, Mr Chairman, one of the large capital expenditure items will be Tynwald Reserve Board and their lodge. So that was a capital expenditure item that would be sitting under the Tynwald Reserve, under the Reserve Board line.
So
they
it could,
do have,
could actually be Tynwald Reserve Board rather than the multiple. By branding reserve boards, it looks as if all the reserve boards in the district get 400 grand between us, but we don't, do we?
the Reserve Board line includes any reserve board, including Tynwald. And Tynwald is actually the biggest one with the biggest income, and in this last year has had the most capital expenditure.
Supplementary to that. So, Mr Brake, I just heard Councillor Wilson ask, how do reserve boards get a request in for a capital budget? And did I hear you say that you've gone to all reserve boards and asked for their contribution for the next year?
I have sent out a letter, well, my finance team has sent out a letter to them with what we had from the LTP, asking them to amend them and to add any projects in that they believe they're going to do in the next year. So when they come back, and I think the 16th of April was the time frame for them to come back, then their budget will be a lot more accurate, and they'll have agreed to it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so page 14 again, economic development. Parks and open spaces, page 15. Community governance, page 16. Environmental services, page 17. And 18, and then miscellaneous dividends, page 19. Page 20, internal overhead, community relations. Page 21, Councillor Brown.
Yeah, EA Networks income and expenditure, it's a budget item for that specific area of expenditure down there. What would probably be helpful is beside the year-to-date actual would be year-to-date budget. Fully forecast is meaningful, but not as much meaning as a year-to-date budget would be beside the year-to-date actual.
Through you, Mr Chairman, this page won't be in your next various report. It's going to be reported on simply like any other activity, and we will report any significant variances as we would any other activity. So it's going to just be reported to as part of the activity that relates to it, won't be split out.
Why are you doing that?
It's a level of detail that I don't think you require anymore, and to put in line by line like that when we don't do that for any other activity, and then we also put it in with no explanations is not that helpful. So really what I think the council should be interested in is whether it's meeting its operating income target or not, or whether it's meeting its overall operating expenditure or not.
And you'll report if it's not through the other channels?
Yes, we will.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Page 22, the balance sheet. '23, the net debt and borrowings. And 24, borrowing by activity. 25, council investments. 26, the receivable summary. Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. I've asked it at previous meetings, so sorry, I'm going to be consistent. APL property contract advance of 10,000 in EMC asset investments. Just Mr Bragg.
Mr Chairman, I might have mistakenly advised the committee last time that APL advance had been repaid. It hadn't, and that's why it's still sitting there. So I followed up on that. It may have been repaid now. Yeah, so presumably it's been repaid now. I've just had it confirmed, so it's going to come off in the appropriate month. It's either February or March report, it'll be off. The EMC investment I still have not followed up yet, so I apologise for that.
Thank you. So no further questions there at all?
Page 26.
Yes?
Just in the 3 months owing, other debtors, it's about 400,000. What's happening with that? It's not restricted, it's sitting there 3 months owing. What's progress is being made to recover it? It's not rates either, it's debtors.
Through Mr Chairman, I can perhaps provide a detailed breakdown of that at the next meeting. There are at least 2 large ones I'm aware of that we are reviewing legal action on, but it is being followed up.
Any further questions there at all on the variance report? When are they getting the February one?
They've had the February one.
Yeah. So
Yeah, we've already got it, I think.
Okay. We need to receive this? Do we receive the variance report? No. Okay. Okay, 6.5, governance and business support. So the minutes are there. Community Board, this is not here. Minutes are also been circulated. Reserve and Memorial Halls. And letter of thanks from Ashburton College, thanking the council for the support of the John Griggs scholarship and advising that the award went to Kate Donald. So congratulations to her. But also since this time, we've also received another letter of thanks from Jill Newton regarding the ceremony that was held, and just acknowledging the fact that she won an award and thanking council very much. So we have another letter here that just missed the cut-off date for this meeting, but we decided to include it. So, yeah. Right. We're going to break for a cup of tea and then we'll come back. So we'll break for a... Councillor Bell?
I've got a question, Mr. Chair. For this scholarship for John Grigg, will this be given annually? I know that we haven't given it for a while. Will it be annually by now? Or?
That's the plan, isn't it?
My understanding, and Mr. Brake will correct me, I'm sure if I'm wrong, is that when the statue went in, the Grigg family have set up a benevolent process, or the reserve receives interest. That interest is used as a prize, and those funds go to both colleges. My understanding is Ashburton College was paying out money and still honouring the John Grigg prize every year, but not actually claiming it from council. Have I understood right, Mr. Brake?
Sure, that's my understanding. But my understanding also was it was supposed to be annual.
Thank you. So councillors, we'll break for a cuppa, and then when we come back, we'll be doing the in-committee part of the meeting. So, yep. So just back at 3:10 by that clock up there.